I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to Yeshiva Har Sameach for hosting me here these last 3 weeks. I've been doing this now for 14 or 15 summers. I hope eventually I'll become a Baal Tshuva. It's hard for a Chutz La'aretznik to speak to Yidden who live in Eretz Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu was afraid of Esav because Esav had the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. I certainly don't come here to say any musar. But it's a time that I'm in pain, Klal Yisrael is in pain, the Shechina is in pain, Klani Moroshi, Klani Mizrahi. So I'd like to share with you some thoughts that might be appropriate for this time of the year, and certainly what's taking place this year. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the halachis of the 9 days. Many of you may have tried to learn from the Shulchan Aruch or the Mishnah Berurah, Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph, and get a rundown of the halachis of Bein HaMetzarim of this time period. I know that many people get frustrated at the order, the Seder. Somehow it seems to us that some contemporary person publishes a book and makes lists, has it much clearer. Certainly is much clearer. You read the list, you know what to do. And Shalom Al Yisrael, what is the order of Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph? So I'd like to explain to you the order and to make a point from that. The Shulchan Aruch is part of our Messiah. It's faithful to the Messiah. And as such, Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph goes in the order of first dinim that have a source in Shas, that have a source in the Gemara. That's the first 3 sifim. And then halachis that come, or minhagim that come from Rishonim. And then the later minhagim which come later. That's the order of Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph based on the source from Gemara to Rishonim to later minhagim. In the first section, where it talks about halachis that come from the Gemara, we discover that there are actually 2 sugyas in Shas that talk about the halachis of Bein HaMetzarim. There are 2 distinct sugyas. One is a Masechtas Tainis, where you'd expect it to be, in the last parak. And the other is a sugi in Yavamis, Daf Mem Gimel, that also talks about certain halachis. And it strikes you, why is it in 2 places in Shas? Masechtas Tainis, it talks about the prohibitions on laundering, on taking haircuts. And on Yavamis, it talks about the prohibitions on getting married, making purchases of certain types, building and planting. Why are they in 2 places in Shas, and consequently in 2 places, 2 sifim in Shulchan Aruch? And the answer is that the observance of Bein HaMetzarim has in it 2 distinct categories of Isurim. And as you'll see in a moment, if you understand that there are 2 categories of dinim, 2 categories of halachas that apply during this time period, many of the kashas, the difficulties that people have in learning these halachas will fall away. One, the Gemara in Yavamis is talking about Mishenichnas Av Mematin B'Simcha. Mishenichnas Av Mematin B'Simcha, which incidentally is a Mishnah in Tainis. has its halachis in Yavamis. The dinim in Yavamis are dinim of mematim b'simcha. You don't make chasna during this time period. Mekach u'memkar, certain purchases are not made. Binyan shel simcha, netiyah shel simcha, certain building and planting activities are prohibited. That's a din of mematin b'simcha. That's one din of the 9 days. In Masechtas Tainis, it's a different topic. It's a topic of Hilchas Avelos. Because this is the time of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, we are noyeg, we practice certain types of Avelos. The Yad Ephraim calls it Avelos Shel Shloshim. Certain types of Avelos similar to an oval who's in the 30 days of mourning. And that's why in Masechtas Tainis it talks about such dinim as laundering clothing, dinim as taking a haircut, those halachis which are tied to Hilchas Avelos. So basically we have two groupings of dinim. The dinim of mimatim b'simcha, it's a time of the year where we're mimayit in things that cause joy, that bring out joy. And the dinim of Avelos, the mourning activities that apply during this time. Now, as I said, if you understand this basic idea, which is why the Shulchan Aruch is structured this way, they're two separate things. So certain difficulties are understood. For example, Ashkenazim basically keep all the dinim for the entire 9 days. With the exception, I think, of clipping one's nails, which we do only Shvuah Shechal by. But basically, the halachas are for the whole 9 days. Sfardim, as you know, have certain halachas that they keep only Shvuah Shechal by, and certain halachas which they keep for the entire 9 days. Now, it's very confusing to most people. Which dinim are the 9 days, and which dinim are Shvuah Shechal by? And how is it decided what is where? And the answer is very simple. The halachas that come from Yavamis Mem Gimel, and the minhagim that stem from there, Yavamis Mem Gimel is the dinim of Mishenichnas Av, Mematin B'Simcha. So according to everyone, that applies for the entire 9 days. The dinim that come from Masechtas Tainis, Avelos Dikadinim, Dine Avelos, so that the meaning of the Svardim is to keep Dine Avelos only in Shvuah Shechal Bay, in the week in which Tisha B'Av falls. But there's a clear distinction. Those that are Mishnit Nisab, Mematim B'Simcha have one rule, and Avelos, they have a different rule. As you go through the technical halachis, you'll see many things will be understood. For example, the Isser Mekach Memkar, the Isser of doing business, which says in Shulchan Aruch. Mishnah Berurah says it means Mekach Memkar Shel Simcha. Now, an Oval, when he's limited in business, is during the Shiva, is totally also to do business. And during Shloshim, he has no limitations. How do we know that Mekach Memkar means Shel Simcha? The answer is, because we look, does it come from Yavamis or does it come from Tainis? It comes from Yavamis. Yavamis is Mematim B'Simcha. So we understand that when it says Mekach Memkar, it means purchases of Simcha are also in these days, not purchases that are not Shel Simcha. And the reverse as well. It says in Shulchan Aruch, laundering kibus is aser. So, and from there we extend that to buying clothing, which is a minig that extends the Isser Kibus. How do you know that includes socks and underwear, things that have no simcha at all? Maybe that's also Dvarim Shel Simcha. The answer is because the Isser of laundering is in Masechtas Tainis. It's not because of simcha, because of Avelos. Since it's tied to Dinei Avelos, so therefore, all of the rules are not tied to Inyanim Shel Simcha. This, I guess, is an overview of the technical halachis of this time. Obviously, the technical obligations of this time period mirror a dual obligation that we have during these days in our attitude towards the Bein HaMitzarim, and our attitude as we come to Tisha B'Av, and as we shall see in our general attitude towards the tsaris of Klal Yisrael, the difficulties of Klal Yisrael, is a mematin b'simcha, and there's a sense of avelus. When Nehemiah comes to Klal Yisrael, and they're weeping on a Rosh Hashanah, he tells them, Al tis'ablu va'al tivku. Sounds like a double lashon. Al tis'ablu, avelus, not now. Va'al tivku, when you're being memayit b'simcha, not now. He tells them today is Rosh Hashanah. Al tis'ablu va'al tivku. There are two aspects to the mourning and the memayit and b'simcha of this time period. If we think into it, the difference has to do with a fundamental idea in serving the Rabbi Shalom, and really in doing anything. Typically, a human being is motivated to do something by one of two things. Either his emotion, what we call the lave, the heart, or by his intellect, by his head, by his intelligence. If you decide to do something, you might decide to do it because it's the intelligent thing to do. You might decide to do it because you have this feeling, this taiva, this desire to do it. You walk by a dessert cart, you have a choice between a gooey chocolate cake and a fruit salad. It's an easy choice. One is the head and one is the heart. The heart is the seat of taiva, of desire, of emotion, of joy. And much of what we do is a struggle between balancing the two. Nobody's just a head person, and hopefully no one's just a heart person. We balance the two types of motivation that we have. And in the avelus of Bein HaMitzarim, they are both. The avelus of Bein HaMitzarim contains within it mematim b'simcha. Simcha is an emotion of the heart. Joy. The exact rules of mematim b'simcha, there are no precise rules in Shulchan Aruch. Mekach shel simcha. It's left for you to decide what exactly is simcha, what is not simcha. You won't find precise, exact rules. Avelus, on the other hand, avelus is an avodah shebemayach. Avelus, although it comes to deal with the emotions of a person, avelus are precise rules. When a person is emotional before a mace is buried, the Rambam says there are no dinei avelus at all. It's more lenient before burial than after burial. According to the Rambam, bathing before burial is mutter and after burial is asur. But before burial, there are no technical rules of avelus. It's a time of emotion. When avelus begins, avelus is an avodah. It's an avodah to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the aspects of avelus which the Shulchan Aruch demands, which Chazal set up for us. There's no chumrah to have more dinei avelus, to sit on the floor a whole 9 days. Mematim b'simcha, that we do, that's an emotional thing. This idea, the dual activities of a person, or the dual motivation of a person, is fundamental. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say on the pasuk L'Avdai b'chol levavchem, Rabbi Yaakov said that it always bothered him there's no word in Tanakh for the brain. There's no word today, the word mayach is used, which is not used in Tanakh for the brain. Rabbi Yaakov said that leiv is used for the brain as well. And levav specifically, b'shnei yitzarecha, is a reference to the heart and to the brain. It's one word for what motivates people. B'shnei yitzarecha. The leiv, the mayach, the two. And being a frum Yid means understanding that the leiv has to follow the Rosh. Understanding that the heart has to follow the brain. That our Messiah, Limud HaTorah, is our fundamental guide in life. Rachmana liba boy. God wants the heart too. The Chazal don't say Rachmana roish boy. That's Yiddishkeit. To understand. And our lay follows in the path that the head decides. So you might walk past the dessert cart, and there's this piece of gooey chocolate cake and a fruit salad. And you're debating which one to take, the heart or the head. And then someone tells you, oh, the cake is not kosher. The salad is. And a frum Yid walks by a dessert cart, the cake is not kosher and the salad is. There's only two choices. Take the salad or take nothing. We don't have a battle to take the cake because that's our avodah. We train ourselves that our head guides us. To the amazement of psychologists, people who are addicted smokers are able to turn off their desire for addiction for 25 hours every Shabbos. A frum Yid, addicted to smoking, and for 25 hours he's without a cigarette. Of course, he davens with the earliest minyan on Motzei Shabbos, and quickly goes out and gets his cigarette. But that's our avodah. That's our hatzlacha. That's our success. Our success is in being able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu by leading with our heads. When it comes to the basic emunah of a Yid, our basic faith, there's a quote from Reb Mendel Mishklov, quoting his Rabbi, the Vilna Gaon. Shomati mimori v'Rabbi, Kabbalah biyad ha'ga'onim. I heard from my Rabbi, the Gra, a Kabbalah he had from the people before him, ish mipi Moshe Rabbeinu. Kabbalah that goes back to Sinai. Shekol avodah zara, hoisoba gams nus biyachad. Wherever we find Klal Yisrael enticed by avodah zara, there was nus there as well. It was not that Klal Yisrael fell just to the intellectual challenge of God or the avodah zara. There was the challenge of taiva. V'zehu shenemar, and this is what it says in Parsha Shoftim, vayiznu achar haba'alim. Klal Yisrael followed znus to go after avodah zara. The Nevi'im Rishonim, they use the language of znus all the time for lack of faith to the Rabbi Shalom. Apikursis, by and large, is rooted in taiva, in a failure to follow the head. The Graz Yisayid has a remez in the Chumash. V'lo sasuru acharei levavchem v'yacharei einechem. The same pasuk. Lo sasuru, don't go after avodah zara and after znus. It's the same idea. It's an idea we find certainly by Baal Pa'ar. We find constantly this theme, this idea. My approach, and it happens that someone comes to me, a young man, and he tells me he has sfeikos in emunah. He has questions about faith. So I sit down, talk to him, but I give him the following hagdama. It's human nature that a struggle that I once struggled with, I can help someone else struggle with. Somebody who struggles with an addiction is best off going to someone who successfully struggled with an addiction. Someone who struggles with an illness is better off going to someone who struggled with an illness. When it comes to questions of emunah, I could talk to you about issues that I've struggled with in my life. But there are two issues that were never a question to me. I couldn't understand that anyone would question. And these two issues, I tell the person, if these are the issues, you have to go to someone else. Number one, the idea that the world came about through a creator. To me, I don't see that an intelligent human being can have a question. If I take a pen out of my pocket, I say this had to be created by some type of intelligent design. I look at a world. If someone is not sure if it happened by itself or there was a creator, it's something I can't discuss with you. If you ask me, is there a stende here? There's no stende. I have no words to discuss something that is readily apparent to me. A Yid always concedes the point. He's a creator. The second point, I tell him there's a second thing, which again, if this is your doubt, I can't help you. If there was a creator, there must be a purpose in creation. There's got to be a purpose in life. I wouldn't create anything if I didn't have a purpose. It makes no sense that the creator would create with no purpose. And usually it doesn't take a lot of reflection for someone to say, okay, I'll concede that point too. And once you concede those 2 points, there's not much else out there except znus, taiva, which pulls a person to question. Reb Zanvil was the Dayan of Vilna. He had a wonderful approach. Someone came to him and said, can you prove there's a creator? He said, of course I can prove there's a creator. Really, how? Tells the Talmud, go bring me the Rambam. Takes out the first volume of the Rambam, Yesodei HaTorah. He shows the man, it's Beferish and Rambam. There's a creator. The Raiva doesn't ask any question, because the Mishnah doesn't argue. They don't let the Rambam go with any mistakes. Something to that approach. I had a friend in Brooklyn who had invited a Jew who had never been at a Seder to participate in the Seder. In the middle of the Seder, this fellow said very emphatically, how do you know God took the Jews out of Egypt? How do you know that? Can you prove it? So the grandfather who was there at the table says to the man of the house, can I answer him? I said, yeah, sure. So the whole table is hushed. And he says to him in a Yiddish-tainted English, he says to him, of course God took the Jews out of Egypt. Who else took the Jews out of Egypt? There is an avodah that focuses on the head. And if it focuses on the head, on the intelligence, then it focuses on our Messiah, focuses on Shas, it focuses on everything we have, our sitting and learning, our struggling to understand the meaning of words that were written ages ago. It's all in the Reish. The Lev has to follow. It's all in the Reish. A number of years ago, there was a new cardinal appointed in New York City. This cardinal visited Yeshiva University. And in his tour, they took him into the Beis Medrash. They saw hundreds of boys sitting and harving and learning. And he asked, are they all going to be rabbis? He was told no. Many of them are going to be doctors. Many of them are going to be professionals or businessmen. After his tour of everything there is to see there, this Cardinal Egan asked for one thing. How do you do that? How do you get young men to sit and study? How do you get young men to sit and study? You see, Mr. Egan, a religion that's based on love, or a religion that's based on hate, it comes and goes. A religion that's based on intelligence, on head, on mayach, well, we have, nobody has. Almost 20 years ago, I had serious surgery on my leg. I was in the hospital for a period of time. A wonderful doctor, an Irish gentleman who has helped many a Jew. And one morning he comes in and he says, Rabbi Reisman, is it true that you give a class to hundreds of people? I said, yes. He says, what degree do they get? I said, they don't get any degree. He says, so why do they come? Do you serve food? I said, we don't serve food. So why are they coming? I said, doctor, you won't understand. While I was in the hospital, I had a frum physical therapist, and I had just at that time printed what is undoubtedly the finest book Art Scroll has ever published, The Laws of Ribbis. And I asked one of my family members to bring me the book so I could give it as a gift to the therapist. And Dr. Boland walks in. He says, did you write that book? I said, yeah. He says, oh, the laws of the rabbis? I said, no, the laws of Ribbis. He says, what's that? I tell him, well, Jews have a prohibition on lending money with interest, one to the other. And this is about that. He looks at me. He looks at the book. He says, about that? Such a thick book. And I told him, doctor, you won't understand. Yiddishkeit focuses on the head, on the Reish. Our Emunah focuses on the head, on the Reish. Our success in serving the Rabbi Shalom is dependent on both the Moyach and the Leiv. But the Leiv has to follow the Moyach. And it's a struggle. What we call the Yetzer Hara is a struggle. Struggle between what we know we should be doing and what our heart tells us to do. I want to report to you from Chutz La'aretz. The cultural divide between Yerushalayim and Lahavdil Elef Avdalais, New York, is growing wider and wider. It's incredible to me. I know it's not a verb, but it should be a verb. The pomegranatization of American Jewry. The turning American Jewry into a Leiv people. I don't know if you get the American Modia here. A grocery ad used to have a list of things on sale or extended hours. Today, they have pictures of a succulent steak. It's incredible to me. For the summer, you get ads with pictures of ice cream. Scoops of ice cream sticks. You can buy them from any brand. Why would any one brand pay for that ad? I don't know. But that's what's happening. It's becoming a community that's struggling more and more with being steeped in taivas, being steeped in the struggles. It comes out in the eating, it comes out in the dressing, it comes out in the manicures. My wife said, I can't give mussar about manicures, it's already part of Yiddishkeit in Brooklyn. With a frumkeit, an expecting woman who doesn't want to step on anyone's nail has reserved the first appointment every day, you understand? L'kayim divrei Chazal, when you go for a manicure, how to go. I'm not talking about a kala, a manicure before her wedding, or a girl, a manicure before her date. I'm talking about yaim yaim. It's a pursuit of leiv which seeps in from the culture all around. Those of you who are here and will ultimately go back to the States, hold on to it. Hold on to it. Hold on to the head that says it's absurd, it's ridiculous, it's nonsense to put so much time and effort and money in a wedding where the absurdities are greater. I have to tell you a Or Sameach story. There's a young man that learned here, and I got to know him 4 or 5 years. He became a chassan. He got married to a girl from California, a balas tshuva. And I went to California for his wedding. The girl's parents said they never saw a religious wedding before. They'd like to see what it's like. I told them, there's a young man in my shir who's getting married in California. I'm going to be there for the wedding. Why don't you come and see it? Did I make a mistake? I told them at the wedding that I was being Mesader Kedushin, I could speak to them after the chuppah. They came for the smorgasbord. What a smorgasbord. It's a wealthy family, hopefully, because they spent a lot of money. The first question after the chuppah that they asked me, in all seriousness, what is the significance of the dripping ice sculpture? It was I don't even know if you know what it is. There was an ice sculpture made of the initials of the chassan kala. It was dripping onto a little setting. What is the significance of the dripping ice sculpture? I don't want to talk badly about my hometown. I'm going to get in trouble. But you know, they know it. If you talk to the heads, they know it. It's absurd. But the head is following the heart. It's an avodah. It's an extraordinary avodah. To have the heart follow the head. It's in the Nisayon. It's in the Nisayon of our entire lives. Ad Yom Ha'achron. Every struggle we have, the struggle to stay in the Beis Medrash a little longer, or go to bed. You convince yourself you're so tired you must go to sleep. And then somehow between here and the bed, you fall into schmoozing with people for half an hour. The absurdity should be apparent. But in our struggles, it's not easy. It's not easy. So this is what it's all about. And now we come to the summer of Tafshin Ayin Dalet. A painful, difficult summer. Started talking about missiles overhead, has turned into talking about tunnels underneath. Somehow, in my mind, I could just hear the Maharal speaking in his analysis of this symbolization of everything, how when it's overhead, when it's in Shemayim, there's great siyata d'shmaya. Mistaklim, kol zman shemistaklim klapi avim shebashemayim, there's siyata d'shmaya. But underneath, in the symbol of the netherworld, you need a lot of rachamim. You need a lot of rachamim. The Maharal says the reason a human being stands erect, the reason standing is a sign of kavod, is because we lift our head over our hearts. We say our heads are first, are closer to heaven than our hearts. And today, many thousands of Acheinu b'nei Yisrael, of our brothers, young men, b'nei Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Achayalim, are in places of danger. What does it mean to be a chayal? What does it mean to be a soldier in Gaza? What does it mean? What does it mean when you have to be wary of any human being or animal, anything that approaches you? It means one thing. It means you have to use your head. Your mind has to be first. You can be tired. You could be hungry. You could have a desire to talk on the phone or schmooze with your friends. But discipline is the hallmark of an army. Someone once told the anecdote of a Hungarian Jew that was drafted into the Hungarian army. And he went to his barracks and got dressed. He had never seen this type of clothing. And he goes to line up. And the sergeant says to him, "Private, you're a mess. Your shoes are untied. Your hat is on backwards. Your buttons are off by 2. And your belt is open." And this Yid says, Mr. Sergeant, there's a war going on. You have nothing better to worry about? An army has to have discipline. There's nothing better to worry about. An army needs discipline. People in an army suffer deprivation. I had sent someone I know down to the border to ask soldiers what they need. What they need. Underwear and socks and wipes. They go days without a shower. Deprivation. How? It's an avodah with the head. Totally an avodah with the head. When someone goes to war, the love of family is put on the back burner. The fear of darkness is put on the back burner. And you move forward. On the pasuk, Yiseitze lamilchama alo yavecha, v'ro'isa sus v'rechev amrav mimcha, lo'isira mehem. There's a Parsha Shoftim. Yiseitze lamilchama alo yavecha, the Torah says, lo'isira mehem. And there's a machlekes Rishonim. Many Rishonim hold it's a lav, it's an issa lav. Lo'isira mehem, don't be afraid of them. And other Rishonim say, how could you command somebody, don't be afraid? You have a choice. You have a choice to be afraid. What's lo'isira mehem? Don't be afraid. And the Stipler, I believe it's in the Birchas Peretz, there on Parsha Shoftim, answers. He says, when you go to war, know. There may be no haftacha. There's no guarantee you'll win or lose, unless a Navi gives the haftacha. But know, V'ri'isa sus v'rechev amrav mimcha. Whatever the statistics are, have no bearing on what's going to happen. There's hashgacha pratis. Lo yisira mehem, believe in hashgacha pratis. If the head knows and you get the heart to follow, you'll be successful. That's the avodah of a soldier. We, the Chayalei Yisrael in the Beis HaMedrash, Im Hashem lo yishmar ir shav shakad shomer. It's our avodah to understand discipline and deprivation. The avodah of this time, when Klal Yisrael is in sakana, when Yidden, Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to whom we have to be grateful. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz in his Shmuz refers to the soldiers in the army as Lunayis and Pupayis, the Harugei Lud. A car from here to Gaza, it's a 90-minute drive. For an Israeli, it's a 60-minute drive. If not for them in between, but derech hateva, what would be? You have to feel with them. You have to feel their pain. We don't see the enemy in front of us as they do. But the hisgabrus of the head over the taiva, the ability to deprive yourself of sleep a little longer, the desire to get 60 minutes out of an hour, to get the full concentration for an hour of learning, to say Tehillim thinking of the meaning of the words. I have to tell you, I once went with a high school boy in the yeshiva to Rav Moshe. His mother was having surgery that morning. I went for a bracha. And then I asked Rav Moshe, is it appropriate to take 10 boys out of the Beis Medrash in the middle of Seder to say Tehillim at the time of the surgery? So to my surprise, Rav Moshe said yes. You're taking them from learning to davening? He said there are two medicines. He said the chayla davdem and the chayla davdem. The patient needs the schus of Torah and the patient needs the schus of tefillah. Then I asked Rav Moshe, for how long should we say Tehillim? We'll go up and say Tehillim. For how many minutes? 5 minutes? 30 minutes? An hour? The whole surgery? So Ramesha said, we should say Tehillim as long as the people are still thinking of the meaning of the words. 2.5 minutes. As long as people are still thinking the meaning of the words, that's what it means to say Tehillim. Eza avodah shehi belev. Tehillim is a tefillah. There's a medrash in the beginning of Mishlei. It shocked me. The medrash says that David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech had an argument. The machlokes. Yeah, Rav and Abaye had a machlokes. The machlokes is David and Shlomo. Gemara said that David HaMelech said, Davodah sheberoish is Iker. The primary service of Hashem is in the head. And Shlomo HaMelech said, Avodah shebelev Iker. The avodah in the heart is the Iker. Now, why did this shock me? Shlomo HaMelech is Chacham mikol adam, the wisest of all men, the most intelligent human being. He says, no, it's not the brains, it's the heart. David HaMelech is Libon Shel Klal Yisrael, the heart of Klal Yisrael is Tehillim, full of emotion. He says, no, it's not the heart, it's the brain. What's the pshat in the Medrash? If it would say, Shlomo said the brain and David said the heart, we'd expect that. Maybe. The difference is Shlomo HaMelech lived in a time that was the greatest of times for Klal Yisrael. Everything was wonderful. Shlomo HaMelech was shaylit on the entire world. He had no battles to fight, except the inner battles. He had no enemies that threatened Klal Yisrael. He had no struggles from without. David was the reverse. I don't know if there was another Jew that ever had the pain and struggles, the battles that David had. David's struggles with his enemies from other countries. David struggles with Shaul HaMelech, and then Lahavdil, the son of Shalom. There's many, many struggles. David lived during times of difficulty. When things are good, when things are wonderful, it's easier to serve Hashem with the heart. When things are difficult, when things are hard, Avelus is with the head. If you go to a levaya, and unfortunately the mother, let's say, of the nifter is just weeping uncontrollably, people grab her and say, get a hold of yourself. Get a hold of yourself. If you go to a wedding, and the mother of the kala is crying, no one says, get a hold of yourself. Get a hold of it. It's beautiful. The emotion comes out at a time of simcha. Beautiful. David HaMelech, in a time of tsar, said, you gotta do it with your head. In a time of difficulty, your head has to lead. When you have an nisayon, follow your head. And Shlomo HaMelech says, when you're building a Beis HaMikdash, follow your leiv. When things are good, when the avodas Hashem is sweet, follow your heart. It's going the right way. Today we're in times of difficulty. We're in times of challenge. We're in times of incredible challenge, incredible difficulty. We can't suddenly become different people, but we can think differently. We can do the things we do better. We can somehow not rush to the beds at night and stay up a little longer in the Beis Medrash. Thursday night was always known as a Mishmar night. I'm not so old, but I want to tell you the history of Mishmar nights in my lifetime. Stage one, people stayed up at night and learned late. Stage two, the people who stayed up late at night and learned were given cholent and kugel. Stage three, Mishmar is cholent and kugel, and no one's staying up late at night. Mishmar implies shmirah. Implies shmirah. We have to do that something more. During times of tsar and sarah, our heads have to lead us. Just as in Oval, the Inyanei Avelis are precise. They're with the head, they're with the mind. It's got to lead us. When I was a boy, if I may mention it in the Beis Medrash, there was a television show named Candid Camera. Some of you old enough may remember. By today's standards, it was a very tame show. Candid Camera was a situation which was filmed, which was planned. They would catch unsuspecting people in unlikely situations and see how they react. And a secret camera would film them, and then it would be broadcast. It was a national TV show. They once put on the sidewalk in New York, they put a wall with a door. So people walking down the street had to open the door. And it was incredible. They have films from Atlanta and Chicago, how groups gathered around and stared at this thing. Then they had it in New York City. Everybody just walked, opened the door, and went through. And everybody just kept on going. The man that was Candid Camera was a man named Alan Funt. One day, this is in the 50s, when they had propeller airplanes, Alan Funt got on a commercial flight from New York to California. He's sitting on the plane. People recognized him. He was a national figure. Halfway through the flight, the pilot announced that one of the engines is out. And when they see the propeller stop turning, they shouldn't panic. They still have the other engine to keep them going. What do you think happened on the plane? Everybody sat calmly. The stewardess said, whenever they announce one engine is out and one engine is on, everyone jumps up, everyone's hysterical. You see, Alan Funt was on the plane. And they were sure they were being secretly filmed. So they sat calmly on the plane. Oh, the engine's out, that's nice. The only person scared out of his wits was Alan Funt. What happened? Their heads led them to be calm, as opposed to their emotion, which would have made them hysterical. We're being filmed all the time. We're being filmed up in heaven. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching us. It's a big world. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at you. If you go to a graduation and there are 150 graduates, every parent who's there is focusing on his child. And if he has twins, he's focusing on both of them. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu focuses on you and on me. In the time of a war, the nisyanis of many others down south, many communities down south, how are they reacting? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at you and me as well. Our avodah is to be chayolei tzava Hashem, to be mizgaber our rosh, our head, what our head tells us we need to do, to practice discipline. Discipline, can I say deprivation? Is sleeping 15 minutes less a night as a shmira for a soldier, is that deprivation? I don't know. I guess it is on a certain level. But we understand that Hashem lo yishmar ir shov shakat shomer. The shmira comes from us. We have to show that we know it, that we feel it, that we believe it. And it's not just for them, it's for us. How can we live through a time period such as this and let everything be the same? Don't try to make everything different, it won't last. But something different. A little more time in the Beis Medrash. A little more zehirus in Shnayim Yikra Vechetarnim. A little more zehirus in your davening. Can you say Sim Shalom and not think when there's a war going on? But Atavis, we daydream. At least when we step out of Shemoneh Esrei, we usually wake up. All we want is shalom. To bring back the soldiers. Every Yid should come back b'shalom. Can we go through an entire war and not once realize that we're saying Sim Shalom every day? It's an avodah shebarosh. As I said at the outset, it's a time of pain. We all feel the pain. I don't imply that I'm successful in my davening, in my learning, whatever it may be. I'm talking to myself as much as to anybody else. And a PS. People have asked me, why do you come to Or Sameach? They assume it's not the food. Why do you come to Or Sameach? I want to tell you why. Because when I come here, I see incredible people. I see incredible people who have sacrificed in ways that I never sacrificed, who have given up comfortable lives, friends, in some cases family, who have endured friction and a lack of a lot of the good things they could have had, to be introduced to a God they never met before, to come here. This is a place of Rosh Oiva over Lev. The fact that there are people here, people I have met, I don't want to embarrass them. I met a young man here the first day. I think he was here for less than 2 weeks. He told me his Hebrew is first grade Hebrew. He davens partly Hebrew, partly English. He asked me to help him find a certain English book in the library, which wasn't there. A few days later, I was in the library and it was there. Somebody, surprised, had returned it. Could it be? I don't know. Must have missed it the first time. I went to give it to him. I went downstairs in the Laufer building, and there he is, bent over a Masechtas Gittin, reading the Gemara with his pencil and pen in hand. I was nespoil. Serious nefesh. One summer I came here with a few of my teenage sons who learned here. You know what they told me? Why are we hanging up a picture of Rabbi Yoshev in the study? Take a picture of those two guys, I won't embarrass them, learning late at night, with a stender picked up on a chair. Remember those days? Trying to figure out a Mishnah. Take a picture of them. Take a picture of them. They're the ones that I can't be Rabbi Yoshev. What about them? It's head over heart. And yes, I took a picture of them. I took a picture of every single one. It's stored right here. That's why I come, and I wish it would last. The ability to follow what our intellect, what our seichel tells us. The ability to be avelim when we need to practice avelus. To be loimdei Torah when we have to practice limud Torah. To be people who are menadid in sheina mi bein einei, and people tell me, I don't want to stay up late at night, I fall asleep. Chazal have an incredible memory of Chazal. They say the tal of Tchias HaMesim comes from Talmidei Chachamim who fall asleep over their sefer, and the drool of their mouths falls out onto the table. That's a tal of Tchias HaMesim. That's not to suggest you fall asleep when you're learning. It means people who push themselves. Let us hope that this opportunity, the opportunity to take from the times we're in, to grow from it, to understand this avoid of discipline and deprivation, a little discipline, a little deprivation, and becoming closer to the Rabbi Shalom, may be our schus, to have a little yad in Shemayim, bringing this terrible time here in Eretz Yisrael to a close. Klal Yisrael should know Shalom. Klal Yisrael among the others should know Ava, V'achva, Shalom, V'reyos. The Kadosh Baruch Hu give us the opportunity at last to say a Hallel on a Tisha B'Av. Thank you all.